Hi, and welcome to week 8 of Creative Concepts of Lighting. Today I'd like to talk to you about fashion photography. So last week, remember, we looked at portrait photography, and in class we demonstrated quite a number of lighting patterns and light styles. But remember that the difference between portrait photography and fashion photography is that portrait photography is about the person being photographed. So you're lighting to create a feeling or a character for that person, whereas fashion photography is really about the product. So lighting for fashion photography is, the aim of this is to sell that product. Now the product may be supported by a model, so that's where you have that human element in there, but the product is the fashion, the clothing, or the accessories that that model is wearing. So remember that you may be photographing for advertising purposes. Well, fashion photography is all about photographing for advertising purposes. And for this reason, it may need to be printed in a magazine or newsprint. And in that case, I want to remind you about the lighting ratios that are required for offset printing. So please keep your lighting ratios much smaller. That is, you're going to be keeping your lighting ratios to about the 1 to 3 ratio instead of the large ratios 1 to 6, 1 to 8. And the reason for this is that offset printing just can't handle that range of tone. Your image might be displayed in television, and it might be the simple documentation of an object, like I say, some product that is supported by the model, but it also may be a representation of how that product might make us feel. So that is, what the images that you're creating might link to a lifestyle. It might link to status as well. So just think about that when you're working. So today I just want to go through and show you a few photographers and their work, and let's just have a look at the way they've styled the model, the set, and how they've lit it. So Herb Ritz's work is very classic. So he's working with film back in this point, and this is an outdoor shot. So no, this is not shot in the studio. Yes, you can replicate this in studio, but let's consider that you don't always have to be in studio as well to be photographing. So this lovely shape created by part of this dress or the cape or whatever it is that is flying away from the model. Now look, frames the upper torso of the model. So what we've got is this continuous line of black, which creates that beautiful sensuous shape within the scene. Now this object or this structure here is also creating a shadow on the head as well as the upper torso of the model. The lighting is from above. Can you see how it's just got those lovely hot spots or these highlights along those areas? Simple lighting, and but made beautifully styled because of the simplicity of the tone within this image. Another one from Herb Ritz. So once again, he's working with this light coming from a high angle, and you can see where the highlights are, and on a white background and coming from this direction, can you see where there's a shadow as well? So sometimes it's that simple background with an image that's beautifully posed. So this model is posed well, but she creates a form within that simple background. So this is another one from Herb Ritz. Now this one again is working in the outside, and this time I would suggest you in open shade. So what's open shade? So let's refresh that again. So open shade is when you're using the shade created by a structure of some type. Look, it can be trees, but no, it's usually buildings or architecture. And you know that you're in open shade or in good clean light when you're in that shade and you look up and you can see clear blue sky. So there's no interfering with the light coming from the sky, but it's not directly on the subject, it's just illuminating the subject. And because it's coming from the sky, or it's sunlight, you can see how it's top lighting all these people. So you can see where the light is flowing on her, okay, and on this girl. So investigate that use of open shade, and what happens in this open shade scenario is that it's a little bit like working with gobos and reflectors in a studio. You can stop and start or diffuse the light any way you want, as long as you're in that shaded area. This is another one of Herb Ritts in open shade. This time he's in a garage of some type, and of course, this, if you think about the simplicity of this, the inside the garage is the shaded area, but there, with the open roller door or the big door open, it allows light in. So the light's coming in to the right of the subject from the left of the image here, skims across the body, and it creates these highlight and shadow areas. So be observant and look for areas that you can work in that gives you this beautiful natural light. You can replicate this in the studio, obviously, just by using that single large light. So it has to be a large light source from one side, and using some fill as well. So Irving Penn, another classic fashion photographer, and can you see now Penn is using that similar strategy to what our first photographer did, by using this large shape, or forming large shape with this hat, this lovely little interest in here. So this is, in this case, what Irving Penn is selling you is luxury. So that feeling of luxury, and it's he's broken with the very plain background. He's broken down the elements of the model and the clothing to just black areas of black, and her skin is in between. So a really simple image, but beautiful, beautifully done. So this time, Irving Penn is photographing with the same intent. He's looking for that high-end classic luxury of the 50s. So in this case now, so Irving Penn's not selling a lifestyle or a feeling or a status or anything like that. He's selling you a product. And this product is obviously lip gloss, and look how simple this is. So this time, close-up shot of the lips with the different lip glosses on. Once again, really light, natural and simple lighting just from the top left of the frame here, or the top right of the model. And the last one. So once again, Irving Penn here is using that neutral background, and you can see that there is strong shadow formed in this area. Okay, so that would indicate that the light is coming from the front, front but one side, so it's not actually illuminating this part of the model's body. But I'd suggest to you that he's got a secondary light in here, which is a fill light, and that fill light is not illuminating this area, but it's illuminating here down. And that is because this dress, the texture in this dress and the fabrics is very complicated. So if you only had that one image, this would turn quite dark. So you wouldn't have this separation in the layers of the fabric. So sometimes you have to think a little bit outside the square and customize your lighting so it only illuminates one part of the image and not all the image. So to get that lovely modeling on the upper area of the model and her face, what needed one type of lighting, and to get the separation in the bottom half and then the dress required just a bit customization of that lighting. Richard Avedon, once again. So Richard Avedon was another person who liked to work with that open shade and out in the environment as well. And so the lighting once again is incredibly simple. So it's just daylight. Look onto the model's face. We can see the shadow here. We can see the shadow here. We can see the shadow here. But what is beautiful about Avedon's work is the way he poses his models. So there's a really beautiful, graceful feeling to how he poses them. Now this image wouldn't be okay to shoot now, but if you take away the elephants and leave the model, it's still a beautiful pose that he has the model in the middle there. So Avedon works with movement as well. So he gets those models at that peak of action and stills them with by using his flash in there. So this what happens by him doing that is he gets these unusual shapes. No, so there's quite a dynamic feel to his images. Again, Richard Avedon. So this time, no, he's working with quite a light background, and knowing how these translucent fabrics will photograph differently when they're a single piece of fabric against a white as when they are looped or gathered together, he works on that to show the texture of the dress or the over part of this dress. Once again, that signature dynamic type of style with the movement or the captured movement just at that point of that peak of capture, and simple, once again, very simple lighting. You can unpack the lighting by just looking for the shadow detail. Avedon again, same routine. So this time, no, he's got this small item to advertise or to be part of what he's doing. So instead, no, he has a close up of the image, tightly cropped and beautifully lit. So look where the light's coming from. We have this heavy shadow on this side of the nose and then a heavy shadow on one side of the face as well. You can see what the light source is right here. Albert Watson is a more contemporary photographer who works with colour, and I think I would say to you that the way that Albert Watson works with colour is quite unique. So Albert got his start by photographing Alfred Hitchcock. Okay, so but now what he does is high-end fashion, and he's got his own quite unique style. Or no, he works with this lovely soft and diffuse light. So this is working with softbox light. Okay. But look at this image. So here Watson's understood how to create drama in image just by using colour. So the model's makeup would have been much lighter than natural, and with her face framed with this really dark hair, her eyes direct to the camera, and then that brilliant red lipstick, it produces an intense feeling or an emotion within the image overall. So these are really good examples of Albert Watson's use of colour and gels. So look, you can create this sort of feeling just by working with coloured backgrounds, or you can gel your background as well. But here Watson's got on the orange background he has rim lit the model with a yellow gel, and here he's just put her on a background with the yellow gel. So as a series together, there's that cohesion between the yellow and the yellow background. Now, when you're working with white backgrounds, sometimes, and if you have a chance, you can have some backgrounds that have a glossy finish. So remember last week when we were working with the week before when we were working with product, and I had product on mirrored on glass surfaces, and there was that lovely reflection created by the product. Well, this is the same as what Watson's doing here. So if you have a background with that's not matte, that has a reflective value to it, all of a sudden you can incorporate that reflection as part of the image. So simple, very simple lighting once again. The styling of the posing of the model is incredibly important within that simple frame. Tim Walker once again is a more contemporary photographer. So if you look at this image, and this is split lighting, okay, so we've got lighting just from one side, but it's at a very low lighting ratio. So the difference in exposure on this side to this side is very minimal, okay? Now, when you think about split lighting, you might actually just think about the face being fully illuminated on one side and then the other side in shadow, but that doesn't always have to be so. Quite flat lighting, so the lighting values on either side of that model are the same. So if you remember from right at the beginning of the semester, where I showed you to set up softboxes with equal values or equal exposure values, and so that produces flat lighting and just something different. Okay, so this flat lighting is part of his style. This very subtle diffuse lighting is part of his style, and it matches with the subtle or the subtle or desaturated colours that he uses in his images as well. Christian Tagliavani, though, his work actually spans or moves between advertising and fine art, so he's got quite a diverse portfolio. And sometimes when you're thinking about, telling a story about the product, you have to think about the narrative that you're creating within the image as well. And I think that's what he does, Tagliavani does really quite well. So this is part of his fine art portfolio. However, think about how he's set the images up, how he's lit them, and how you can utilize that knowledge as part of your portfolio as well. So this lovely single beam of light that's coming through the window, which we assume is moonlight, but this is a studio set anyway, which is illuminating just the front of this young girl and how she's beautifully set within this architectural or this room scene. So this is part of his fine artwork as well. But once again, that lovely diffuse light. So this is low contrast light, either window light or softbox. Very subtle penumbra there. So with these desaturated colours, he's using a desaturated or a softer type of light. You see that? Again and again. So sometimes you've actually got to think about what you're photographing, the styling, the colours that you're using, and what light is best to use within that styling and that staging. And also think about changing your backgrounds around a bit. I know it's so easy just to pop a model in front of a wall, in front of a paper background, but think about what type of background is suitable for the style or the type of image that you're creating. So this nostalgic type of image, it's nostalgic because of the way the person's dressed, because of the way they're even staged. So if you think about historical or traditional photography back from the 19th century, then they'll be very still like this. And they've added this Hessian background, which looks like a series of Hessian bags stitched together. Everything is of a similar colour palette as well. Everything's in those warm type of earthy hues. And again, different background. That little element to one side, which is the fish in here. So this, once again, remember, this is part of his fine art. But look at the lighting, look at the styling, and think about what can you bring out of these images into your portfolio. So a similar lighting from that first one. This time, there's the camera there, and the lighting's coming directly towards the camera and illuminating the front of that person. There's his images, printed and up on a gallery wall. So Erwin Olaf is another photographer who actually spans that fine art, sort of high fashion type of work, and he's got quite a number of big European brands in his client list. So if you look at his work, and you can really see how he understands how to work in a space. So this is a beautiful space. I don't know whether it's his studio or it's a building that he works in, but no, it does pop up in his images quite a bit. So the space itself is beautiful and beautifully lit, and then into that grey and that very neutral space, he pops his model, who once again is very still within that space. In this image, no, he's working with the architectural form in the that space again, but in this case he is looking at the flow of the stairs and placing the model on those stairs. Now, the other part of Olaf's work is this surreal type of imagery, and can you see so here where the model is becoming part of the stairwell herself. There's that same building again, and that same building again. So those of you who are working externally, this is a lovely example of window lighting where the light's coming just from one side, and you might have a reflector in the front just to open up the shadow. So now if you only had the window light and you're exposed for that, this would become quite dark. So you need to expose for this area here and fill or add bounce light from the other side. And this is another one of Olaf's surreal images where fashion meets surreal. Lexia Sinclair was a Profoto ambassador, and I'm hoping that this link is still active. So what she does, she photographs on location. So she builds up these really complex scenes where she... So if you're working in this manner, and or even if you're working by compositing images, so photographing elements and bringing them together, if you set up your scene and set up your lighting and have your camera on a tripod, then all of a sudden all the elements within that scene will have a similar lighting to what you're photographing. So this is probably outside of your abilities at this point. But what I want to say to you is have a look at the way she's lit her subject, the beautiful color contrast of the red dress against the coolness of the scene, and how she's actually posed that young lady in there as well. Now Alexia makes the clothes herself, so she builds the props, she makes the clothes, she finds where to photograph, and she puts it all together, and so her work is incredibly complex, but it is lovely at the same time. But you know what, you don't have to have really complex images for them to be successful. And as somebody that's starting out in trying to be creative with your lighting, what I would suggest that you do is keep it simple. So keep it simple and then build up your capability with the application of artificial light. And that's the best way to create that's the best way to create successful images. Do this. So think about the lovely color palette in here, the simplicity of the background with the complexity of all the styling on the model. So the last one, I believe, is Peter Colson. So Peter is an Australian photographer who specialises in this glamour and fashion type of work. So Peter's incredibly successful, and his work's published in magazines, high-end magazines all over the world and in Australia. When you think about and you look at this image, what's Peter advertising? Well, it's not the model, it's about what the model's wearing. Okay, so the clothing that she's wearing actually picks up or supports what she's wearing with the bracelets and stuff. He's once again quite simple lighting, so top lighting, and just be aware that you might need to fill some areas of your image if there's not enough reflected light coming from the floor. So this is working in a studio, a high key studio, and there will be some reflection, but you might actually just have to be filling this area to make sure there's enough detail left in that dress. It's again beautiful, simple lighting. You can see what he's using. So he's using a giant reflector, which we're going to be using in class today. But if you're an external student, you can just be working with daylight coming through a window. One more. So Steve Meisel is the opposite. So some of his work is incredibly complicated like that. So if you look at this Vogue front cover, no, the model seems to, or the clothing seems to, everything seems to blend in together. And this is incredibly hard to do well. It works because they're all of the same colour palette, but different patterning on the fabrics on the background as what's in the clothing. Same here. But if you just stay with those really simple images, no clean background, well lit model and well lit product, then you will be successful every time. So this is Steve's work still. Mario Testino, front cover. Once again, that same formula, well lit model, clean background, and that's a front cover of Vogue. Very simple lighting. You can see where the lighting's coming from, and you can read the lighting because of the shadow. Front lighting, look where the shadow's falling directly at the back of the model. Okay, let's wrap this up. When you're thinking about lighting for fashion photography, remember, and I would suggest that you keep the lighting simple. Keep the lighting simple and build up from one light, then light your background, and then see if you need fill from there. The styling of the model and the set is incredibly important, so to bring all those elements together so they appear cohesive. Remember your colour theory. If you want a calming type of image, then work with those analogous colour palettes. If you want that contrast, like old Albert Watson, then you're going to be working with complementary colour, which is opposite sides of the colour wheel. You might want to include some movement. Movement's always lovely. It provides that drama in your image. Remember your posing. So look through these images here and anything else that you've been looking at, and just do little even stick figure illustrations of posing. And remember, when you're thinking about posing, also think about the camera position. Okay, take care or pay attention to the expression of the model. You don't want the expression of the model to overwhelm what they're wearing or what you're actually what you're advertising in the fashion photograph. And remember always that the photographs may have to become part of a page, design, or a layout. Okay, so there's a few things for you to think about there, but if you just keep these steps in mind, I think you'll get it right. You'll be successful. Okay, that's me for this week, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.